The wind whispered through the cracked pillars of the ancient temple as dawn rose over the valley of Vera. A single man stood upon the stone terrace overlooking the ruins. His name was Cale Ardent, and he was the last guardian of a forgotten order that once protected the boundary between realms. The world had long forgotten his kind. Only dust and silence remembered their vows. Cale's armor was worn by years of battle, and his cloak was torn by countless storms. His eyes carried the gray of ashes, the same color as the lands beyond the horizon. For centuries, his people had guarded the Forbidden Gate, a relic that led to something beyond mortal understanding. They were bound by oath to never open it, but time had eroded both the oath and the order itself. Cale alone remained, and even he did not know why he still lingered in the shadow of that gate. As the first rays of sunlight touched the carved sigils of the massive stone doors, Cale felt the vibration beneath his boots. The runes glowed faintly gold and then dimmed again as if sighing after a long sleep. He gripped the hilt of his sword named Ilarion, forged from the heart of a fallen star. The blade shimmered with faint blue light as if responding to the gate's pulse. It was said that only the blade of Ilarion could unlock the seal if the Guardian willed it. Cale turned his gaze toward the east, where the ruins of a city shimmered faintly under the light. That city, once known as Morthen, was now nothing but skeletal towers and the hollow cries of wind. It was there that the Great War had ended, the war that consumed his brothers and sisters. He had not spoken to another soul in 50 years. Sometimes he thought he could hear their voices in the wind. Sometimes he feared he was right. He descended the terrace, his boots scraping the old stone path. Birds scattered from the temple roof, startled by the sound. The air was dry, carrying the scent of sand and stone. Cale approached the gate, towering high into the pale sky, its surface covered in countless runes of light and shadow. It was said the gods themselves carved it before they departed this world, leaving mortals to wander in ignorance. Cale placed his palm upon the cold stone. The pulse returned. Stronger this time, it resonated with the faint energy of his sword. His heart pounded as a vision flashed before his eyes, a figure cloaked in silver standing before the gate 1,000 years ago, whispering words of power. The same words echoed faintly now in his mind. He fell to his knees, clutching his head as the vision grew stronger. He saw his ancestors falling one by one, their blood spilling upon the sacred steps. He saw the gate open and light beyond light pouring out, consuming everything. Then darkness, then silence. When he awoke, the sun had risen higher. His sword lay beside him, glowing faintly. He breathed slowly, forcing calm into his trembling body. He had sworn never to awaken the gate, yet the gate itself was calling him. He rose and walked toward the inner sanctum of the temple where the Codex of Ithra was kept. It was a massive tome bound in dragon hide, filled with runes that few could read. Cale had studied them for years. Some spoke of prophecy, others of warning. But one passage had always haunted him. When the last guardian stands alone beneath the fractured sky, the gate will call his name and the world will tremble once more. He had dismissed it once as legend. Now he was not sure. As he opened the tome, a faint voice whispered behind him. "You should not be here." Cale froze. The words were clear, not imagined. He turned slowly, his hand on his sword. A woman stood near the entrance, her form faintly luminous as if woven from light. Her hair flowed like silver threads, and her eyes glowed pale gold. "Who are you?" Cale asked, his voice rough from years of silence. "I am what remains of the first guardian," she said softly. "You should not awaken what sleeps behind that gate." Cale's grip tightened. "I never intended to. But it is calling to me. Why now after all this time? Because the seal weakens. The balance breaks. You are the last, and only your will can decide what becomes of this world." Her words carried both sorrow and finality. Cale stepped closer, studying her face. "Are you spirit or memory?" "Both," she replied. "And neither. I am bound to the gate until the last guardian falls. That time nears." The wind howled through the cracks of the temple. The light around her flickered as if fading. Cale wanted to ask more, but she raised a hand, silencing him. "Do not seek the gate's heart. Not yet. The key lies beyond these ruins in the plains of Vareth. Find the Shard of Dawn. Only with it can you decide whether to open or destroy what lies within." Cale nodded slowly. though uncertainty burned in him. Then I will go. If this is my task, I will see it done. Her gaze softened. Then may the stars guide you, last guardian. With that, she vanished, leaving behind a faint glimmer in the air. Kyle sheathed his sword and stepped out of the temple into the growing light of morning. The path before him stretched through sand and ruins leading toward distant mountains. The journey to Vareth would take days, perhaps weeks, yet something deep within him stirred. A sense of purpose long forgotten. As he walked, the shadows of the past followed him. He could hear the faint echo of his brothers training in the courtyard, the laughter of old comrades, the song of the Order of Light. Every step was a memory, every breath a reminder that he carried the weight of all who had fallen. Night fell and he made camp. Beneath a shattered archway, the stars burned above him cold and distant. He sat beside the small fire watching the flames dance. For the first time in years, he spoke aloud a prayer to the Ancient Ones. If this be my end, let it be one worthy of the oath I swore. The wind answered with silence. He closed his eyes and dreamed. In his dream, he saw the gate once more, but this time it was open. Light spilled out like rivers of fire and shadow. At its center stood a figure cloaked in silver holding the shard of dawn. When she turned her face toward him, he saw his own reflection staring back. He awoke with a start, the fire dying to embers. The vision lingered in his mind, sharp as a blade. He knew what he must do. He rose, gathered his things, and began walking toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn touched the edge of the world. The gate awaited, and with it the truth of his existence. Kale Ardent, the last guardian, set forth upon his path to unlock or destroy the forbidden power that had slept since the dawn of time. And in the depths of the temple far behind him, the runes on the gate pulsed once more, as if sensing that destiny had begun to move. The road to the plains of Vareth stretched endless beneath the cold blue sky. Kale Ardent walked with steady purpose, though the weight of years and memory pressed heavily upon his shoulders. His boots sank into shifting sand, and his cloak whipped against the wind. He had not spoken since leaving the temple, though the voice of the spectral guardian still echoed in his mind. Find the shard of dawn, she had said. Only with it could he choose between light and ruin. The plains were vast, silent, and shimmering with heat. Long ago this place had been a sea. Now only bones of creatures and remnants of ships lay scattered half-buried in dust. He passed the husks of forgotten machines, their gears rusted, their purpose lost. Each ruin whispered of a time when gods and mortals shared knowledge freely before arrogance brought ruin upon all creation. By nightfall, he reached the edge of a canyon where wind howled through jagged cliffs like the cry of old spirits. He made camp among the rocks, lighting a small fire with flint and dried moss. As the flames rose, faint and flickering, Kyle removed his gauntlets, revealing hands scarred and worn. He traced the marks upon his palm, where the sigil of the guardians still glowed faintly. The oath of his order was carved not in ink, but in flesh. He whispered the ancient vow beneath his breath. To guard the gate until the stars fade, to hold the light even as darkness falls, to stand when all others have fallen. But what did it mean now when there were no others left? As he pondered these words, he felt a presence approach. His hand went to his sword before he saw the figure standing at the edge of the firelight. A traveler cloaked in gray, holding a staff that shimmered faintly with runic lines. "Peace, stranger," the traveler said, voice calm yet weary. "I mean you no harm." Kale studied the stranger's eyes beneath the hood. They glowed faintly blue, a trait not of men, but of the old races. "Few wander this land," Kale said. "Who are you?" The stranger lowered his hood, revealing a weathered face marked with silver veins across the skin. "My name is Saren of the Lumaean Order, or what remains of it." "I seek the same thing you do," Kale frowned. "You know of the Shard of Dawn," Saren nodded slowly. "It is said to be hidden within the caves of Valor beneath the plains. Few who entered ever returned." Kale's grip tightened on his sword. "Then you know what it awakens." "I know only that it binds the gate," Saren said, sitting beside the fire. "The balance of worlds depends on it. If the shard is taken, the seal weakens. If it is destroyed, the gate will awaken on its own." Either way, the end approaches. Kyle looked into the flames. Then why seek it? Because, Saren replied, his tone grim, there is another who hunts it. The one who calls himself the Harbinger. He believes the gate must open so that the world may be remade. The name struck Cale like a blade through the chest. He had heard it once long ago, whispered by dying comrades on the battlefield. The Harbinger was said to be a fallen guardian who turned from the oath-seeking godhood through the power beyond the gate. If he lives, Cale said quietly, then the gate truly stirs. Saren nodded. He gathers followers from the ashes of old kingdoms. They march even now across the eastern dunes. Soon the world will burn again. The night deepened and the two men sat in silence. Only the fire spoke crackling softly beneath the starlight. When dawn came, they began their journey together across the plains. Days passed beneath unchanging skies. The sun blazed above and the sands shimmered like molten glass. They spoke little, for both knew the weight of silence and the burden of duty. Once they passed the skeletal remains of a giant beast half buried in stone. Cale paused before it, laying a hand upon its skull. This creature died protecting something, Saren murmured. Perhaps even the shard. Kyle nodded. Then we follow its trail. By twilight they reached a vast chasm splitting the plains in two. From within rose a faint glow like molten light. The entrance to the caves of Valor lay hidden in the shadow of the cliffs. Ancient runes marked the stones around the opening, warning of curses and forbidden power. Cale descended first, his sword drawn, its blue light guiding the way. The air grew cold and heavy with whispers. The walls of the cave pulsed faintly like the veins of a living being. Deeper they went, following the echo of an unseen heartbeat. Then they saw it, the Shard of Dawn, floating above a pedestal of black stone. It glowed with fierce golden light, illuminating the chamber. But before Cale could approach, a voice boomed from the shadows. So the last guardian returns to claim what he once swore to protect. A tall figure stepped forward, armored in dark steel engraved with runes of fire. His face was hidden behind a helm shaped like the skull of a dragon. Yet Cale knew the voice. "Thane," he whispered. The figure laughed, a sound cold and hollow. "You remember? Once we stood side by side before the gate. You chose duty, I chose truth. And now look at you alone, forgotten while I command the power of gods." Kyle raised his sword. "You betrayed the oath. You brought ruin upon us all." Thane lifted his gauntleted hand and fire burst from the ground, circling them both. The oath was a lie. The gods sealed us from their realm not to protect us, but to enslave us. The gate is freedom. The shard is the key. Stand aside, Cale. Cale's voice was steady, though his heart thundered. "I cannot." Then the battle began. Blades clashed with thunderous force. Sparks rained across the chamber as light met flame. Cale moved with the grace of an old warrior, every strike precise, every motion driven by purpose. Thane fought with fury, his power fueled by dark energy drawn from the gate itself. The cavern shook, their footsteps echoing like drums of war. Saren watched from the edge, chanting old words of power, his staff glowing as he tried to contain the spreading fire. But the darkness grew stronger, feeding upon Thane's rage. Cale's blade struck true, slicing across Thane's chest, yet the wound burned with black fire and sealed instantly. Thane roared, striking back with a blast of flame that sent Cale sprawling. His armor smoked, his breath ragged, but he rose again, gripping Ilarion tightly. "You cannot stop what is coming," Thane growled. "The gate will open. The gods will fall, and I will become their end." Cale met his gaze. "Then I will end you first." With a cry, he charged, his sword blazing with light. The two forces collided in a blinding flash that shook the chamber. The pedestal cracked and the Shard of Dawn trembled between them. Then everything went white. When the light faded, Cale found himself alone. The shard lay in his hand, glowing faintly. The chamber was silent. Thane was gone, leaving only a shadow burned into the stone. Saren approached slowly, his eyes wide. "You have it. But the seal, it weakens." Cale stared at the shard, its light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He felt warmth and terror intertwined. "Then we must reach the gate before he does." Saren nodded. "The path ahead will be perilous. The Harbinger will rise again. But the choice will be yours and yours alone." Kale sheathed his sword, his face grim. Then let us make haste. The world still has need of its guardian. They climbed from the depths of the cave into the dying light of day. The sky above burned crimson as if bleeding from unseen wounds. In the distance, thunder rolled, though there were no clouds. The gate had awakened, and so the journey to destiny began anew. The wind screamed across the desert as Kale Ardent and Saren trudged onward, the shard of dawn glowing faintly beneath Kale's cloak. The land had changed since they entered the caves of Valor. The sky now hung low and dark, as if the heavens themselves watched with fear. Lightning flashed across the horizon, though no rain followed. Each step felt heavier, as if the world itself resisted their passage. Saren leaned on his staff, his breaths shallow. "The shard calls to the gate," he said at last. "It binds and it hungers. The closer we get, the more it will awaken." Kyle nodded silently. He could feel it, too, a vibration deep within his bones, a hum that echoed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Sometimes he thought he could hear whispers in the sound, faint voices speaking a language older than stars. They stopped by a dried riverbed at dusk. The cracked ground shimmered faintly with remnants of ancient runes. Kyle set down his pack and gazed west, where the peaks of the Obsidian Range loomed black against the blood-red sky. Beyond those mountains lay the gate. He could feel it like a pulse at the edge of the world. As night fell, Saren lit a faint blue flame from the tip of his staff. It hovered in the air, casting pale light. "The darkness moves swiftly now," he said. "The Harbinger gathers his armies from the ruins of Morthen. He will march upon the gate before the next moon rises." Kyle stared into the distance. "Then we have little time." He drew his sword, resting it upon his knees. The blade glimmered faintly in the firelight, its edge unmarred despite years of battle. Ilarion was forged to protect the balance. It was never meant for conquest. "Yet every battle I fought only brought more death." Saren looked at him with weary eyes. "Duty is not conquest, Kyle. You carry the burden of 1,000 fallen souls. But even a guardian is still human." Kyle's gaze hardened. "Human or not, I must see this through. If Thane lives, I will end him." They rested little that night. Kale dreamed again of the gate. He saw the silver-cloaked woman who once spoke to him in the temple. She stood before the gate, her face sorrowful. "The choice will break you," she said. "To open or destroy, to save or condemn, all paths lead to sacrifice." When Kale awoke, the sky was gray with dawn. Saren was already awake, preparing for the climb. Together they began their ascent into the Obsidian Range. The path twisted through jagged cliffs and narrow ledges. The air grew thin and cold. Shadows clung to the rocks like living things. Once they heard the cry of a beast echoing through the ravine. Kale gripped his sword ready, but nothing appeared. By midday, they reached a narrow pass where stone statues lined the path. Each depicted a guardian kneeling with a blade planted in the earth. Their eyes were hollow sockets, their armor cracked by time. "This is the tomb of the Oathkeepers," Saren whispered. "Here lies the first order of guardians, those who sealed the gate when the gods departed." Kale touched one of the statues. Beneath his hand, the stone was warm, faintly alive. He knelt and bowed his head. "I am Kale Ardent, last of your line. I seek the shard's truth and the world's salvation. Lend me your strength." The air trembled. Faint light flowed from the statues into his armor, seeping into the sigil upon his chest. The mark of the guardian flared bright blue for a moment, then faded. Kale rose feeling renewed, though he said nothing. Saren smiled faintly. "They hear you still." As they climbed higher, snow began to fall fine and silent. The peaks vanished into mist. Kale felt the shard vibrate more violently, now glowing through his cloak. It pulsed with heat like a living heart. Suddenly, a scream split the air. From the mist emerged winged creatures, their bodies twisted and burning with black fire. Their eyes glowed red with fury. "Shades of the gate," Saren cried. "The Harbinger's spawn." Kale drew Ilarion and met the first creature head-on. His blade cleaved through its wing, sending it crashing into the snow. Another dove from above, claws extended. Kyle spun, slashing upward and cutting through flesh and flame. The creature dissolved into smoke. Saren raised his staff, chanting words of light. Bolts of energy struck the creatures, bursting them into ash. Yet more came, dozens at first, then hundreds. The sky darkened with wings. Kale fought without pause, his sword a blur of blue light. For every beast that fell, two more appeared. Snow and ash mixed into gray slush beneath his boots. He felt exhaustion creeping but pressed on. Then he saw it, a massive shadow descending from the storm. A creature twice the size of the other's, wings wide as the mountain itself, eyes like molten suns. "The Herald," Saren shouted. "It guards the path to the gate." Kale steadied himself, gripping his sword with both hands. The creature roared, shaking the air. Its breath was flame, its claws sharp as blades. Kale charged, meeting it head-on. The battle raged across the mountainside. Kale leapt onto the creature's arm, driving his sword into its flesh. Light flared from the wound. The beast howled, swiping at him with its other claw. He jumped clear, landing in the snow as fire exploded where he stood. Saren's voice rose above the roar, chanting an ancient spell. Blue sigils spun in the air, forming a circle of light. "Kale, strike now!" he cried. Kale gathered his strength and ran forward. The creature lunged, jaws open. He leapt through the air, driving a larian straight into its throat. The blade flared blinding white, and the beast screamed as it dissolved into light and ash. Silence fell. Snow drifted down over the battlefield. Kale stood, breathing heavily. His armor scorched, his sword dimmed but unbroken. Saren approached, leaning on his staff. "The path is clear, but the gate will not wait long." Kyle looked toward the horizon where the clouds glowed faintly gold. "Then neither shall we." They rested for only an hour before continuing their climb. As they reached the summit, the storm cleared, revealing the valley beyond. There it stood, the forbidden gate, taller than mountains, its surface shimmering with runes of light and shadow. Rivers of molten energy flowed around it like veins of the earth itself. Above it, the sky split in two, light and darkness warring in silent fury. Kyle stared in awe and dread. "It lives," Saren nodded grimly. "And it remembers." They descended into the valley, following the winding path carved through obsidian rock. At the base of the gate stood ruins of an ancient city built by those who once worshipped the gods. Statues lay, broken temples shattered, yet faint traces of power lingered in the air. As they approached the heart of the ruins, they saw movement among the stones. Soldiers armored in black stood waiting, banners marked with the sigil of the Harbinger fluttering in the wind. Kale drew his sword. "So it begins." Saren's eyes burned with resolve. "The final march." They stepped forward into the shadow of the gate as the drums of war began to echo through the valley. The drums of war thundered through the valley, shaking the ruins to their foundations. Kale Ardent stood at the edge of the broken city, watching the dark host gather before the gate. Thousands of warriors clad in black armor filled the plains, their torches forming rivers of fire. Banners bearing the sigil of the Harbinger fluttered in the wind, each stroke of crimson upon black, a mark of defiance against the gods. Saren stood beside him, staff glowing faintly with blue light. "He has gathered the lost and the damned," he said. "Every soul who ever cursed the heavens now fights for him." Kale's eyes were cold as steel. Then we faced them all. They moved through the ruins, searching for high ground. The shattered towers offered cover, and from their height, Kale could see the gate clearly. It pulsed with slow rhythm like the beating of a giant heart. Runes of gold and black light chased each other across its surface, weaving patterns older than time. The air shimmered with energy that made his skin burn. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The first ranks of the Harbinger's army began to advance. Their weapons glowed with the same dark fire Kale had seen in the caves of Valor. Among them marched towering constructs of metal and bone, forged from forgotten technology and bound by shadow magic. Saren raised his staff, striking it against the stone. A wall of light rose before them, forming a barrier of energy. "This will not hold long," he warned. Kale nodded, drawing a larian. The blade flared blue, cutting through the air with a sound like thunder. "Then we make every moment count." The first wave struck. Arrows rained down upon them, bursting into flames as they met Saren's barrier. Kale leapt from cover, cutting through the front lines. His sword cleaved armor and bone alike, light flashing with every strike. For a moment, the dark tide faltered. Saren joined the battle, casting bolts of energy that tore through enemy ranks. The air filled with the clash of steel and the roar of fire. Yet for every foe they felled, more came to take their place. Kyle fought with the fury of a storm. Each motion was memory, each swing a promise to those who had fallen. But he was only one man, and the tide was endless. A shadow passed overhead. Kyle looked up to see the sky darken as massive airships drifted above the valley, their hulls bristling with cannons of black flame. They unleashed torrents of energy upon the ruins. Explosions tore through the ground, throwing Kale from his feet. Saren shouted words of power, summoning a dome of light that shielded them from the worst of the blast. "We must reach the gate," he cried over the roar. "The shard can stop them if placed within the Heartstone." Kyle rose, coughing through smoke. "Then we fight our way through." They pressed forward through chaos, cutting a path toward the gate. The ruins became a battlefield of light and shadow. Kale's armor was scorched. His movement slowed, yet he did not falter. He could see the massive doors rising higher with each step glowing brighter as if aware of his presence. As they neared the gate, a deafening horn sounded. The enemy ranks parted, and from their midst rode the Harbinger himself. His armor gleamed with molten lines, his sword wreathed in fire. The air around him twisted like heat over desert sand. "So the last guardian dares to stand before me again." Thane's voice boomed across the valley. "Did you truly believe you could stop destiny?" Kale stepped forward, Ilarion burning bright. "Destiny is not yours to claim." Thane laughed, the sound like cracking stone. "It was ours long before you betrayed it. The gods built their world upon our suffering. The gate will end their tyranny." Kale pointed his sword at him. "You would end the world to spite the gods. That is not freedom, that is madness." Thane raised his blade, and the armies fell silent. "Then let the final truth be written in blood." The two warriors charged. Their blades met in an explosion of light and flame that shook the valley. The shockwave sent soldiers flying and shattered nearby ruins. Kale pressed forward, his strikes swift and precise. Thane countered with brutal strength, his every blow a burst of fire. Sparks and ash filled the air. Saren battled beside them, keeping the Harbinger's soldiers at bay. His voice carried chants of old magic, his staff blazing with blue lightning. Yet even his strength began to wane. Kale and Thane fought through smoke and shadow, neither yielding. "You were my brother once," Kale shouted. "Why did you turn from the oath?" "Because the oath was a chain," Thane roared. "We were meant to guard the gate, not serve it. The gods feared our power, so they sealed us away. I will break their prison." Kale struck hard, forcing Thane back. "And destroy everything we swore to protect," Thane's laughter echoed. "If the world must burn to be free, then so be it." Their blades locked, their eyes met. For an instant, Kale saw the man Thane once was noble, fierce, and loyal. Then it was gone, replaced by fire and hatred. Kale drove his sword forward, piercing Thane's shoulder. Light burst from the wound. Thane screamed and struck back with a surge of flame, hurling Kale across the ground. The shard of dawn slipped from Kale's cloak, rolling across the stone. Thane reached for it, but Saren stepped between them. "Not while I draw breath." Thane's hand flared, and dark fire engulfed Saren. The mage cried out, his staff shattering as he fell to his knees. Kale crawled toward him, but Thane struck again, blasting him aside. Saren looked up, his face, pale eyes glowing with fading light. "Kale, the gate's heartstone. Place the shard within it. End this." Kale reached for the shard, but Thane stepped on it, his boot grinding against the glowing surface. "You cannot stop the inevitable." Kale's rage burned through pain. He surged forward, slamming into Thane. The two fell struggling over the shard. Kale grabbed it, pressing it against Thane's chest. Light erupted between them, throwing both backward. When the light faded, Thane lay unmoving. His armor cracked, his eyes dim. The shard hovered above his chest, pulsing. Kale staggered to his feet, staring at it. Saren coughed blood, his voice weak. "Take it, Kale. The gate must be sealed before the darkness consumes us all." Kale hesitated, glancing at Thane, who still breathed faintly. "He is not dead." "Then finish it," Saren said. Kale closed his eyes, gripping the shard. It burned his hand, yet he held it tight. He turned toward the gate, where the heartstone pulsed deep within the runic pattern. The ground shook as he approached. The gate's light flared gold and black, twisting in conflict. Whispers filled the air, voices of gods and guardians long gone. Kale raised the shard high and drove it into the heartstone. A blinding flash engulfed the valley. When his vision cleared, the battlefield was silent. The armies of the Harbinger had fallen their forms, turning to dust. The gate stood still, glowing softly. Thane lay motionless. Saren struggled to stand. "You did it." Kale shook his head. "No, it is not over. The gate still calls." He could feel the pulse, stronger than ever, echoing within his chest. The shard had not sealed the gate, it had awakened it. From the surface of the gate, a crack of light spread upward. The air trembled. The runes shifted, forming new patterns. A voice like thunder spoke within Kale's mind. "Guardian, you have fulfilled the first vow. Now the second begins." Kale fell to his knees, clutching his head as visions poured into him. He saw stars collapsing, worlds, reborn gods fleeing through portals of light. He saw himself standing at the end of time, holding Ilarion as the universe burned around him. Saren grabbed his arm. "Kyle, what is it?" Kyle's eyes glowed faint blue. "It is not sealed. It is opening from within." The gate shuddered, its light growing blinding. Winds howled, tearing through the ruins. Thane's body dissolved into shadow, sucked into the gate's heart. Kyle tried to hold his ground, but the pull was too strong. Saren shouted his name, reaching out, but the light swallowed them both. Then there was silence. The valley lay empty. The gate stood silent once more. Only faint echoes remained, carried by the wind. Far beyond the veil of worlds, Kale Ardent awoke in a realm of endless light. Kale Ardent stumbled forward, his vision blurred by the radiance of the gate. The world behind him fell away, leaving only the pulsing heart of light stretching into infinity. Saren's hand brushed his shoulder, weak and trembling. "Kyle, you must focus the shard," he said, voice strained like it carried the weight of mountains. Kale's fingers closed around the shard of dawn, its warmth bleeding into his veins. It was alive, he could feel it humming with energy, like a heartbeat, like a voice calling through time. The gate loomed before him, vast, incomprehensible, its runes shifting and writhing as if awake and aware. He felt both fear and a strange calmness, as though the shard whispered truth into his mind. A figure appeared within the light. The silver-cloaked woman from his dreams, her eyes calm yet infinite. "Kale," she said, her voice neither male nor female, yet every syllable resonated in his chest. "You stand at the end of what was and the beginning of what will be. The choice is yours." Kyle swallowed his fear. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why am I the last?" "You are not the last by chance," she replied, stepping closer, though the light did not bend. "You are bound to the gate through your blood, through your oath, through the light and shadow within you. The others fell to time and betrayal, but you endured. That is why you stand here now." He looked down at the shard and felt memories flood him. The battles, the fallen comrades, the sacrifices he made alone in silent snow and blazing deserts. The blade of Ilarion by his side, the oath upon his chest. The voices of those who had guided him whispered in the wind. "I do not know if I am worthy." Kale said, his voice trembling with exhaustion and awe. She reached toward him, her hand pale light coiling around his. "Worthiness is not required, only courage to act when all else fails to stand, when no one else can. That is all the world asks of its guardian." A shiver ran through Kale as their fingers touched. His vision swam with memories, not his own images, of the first guardians, their triumphs, their sorrows, their whispers woven into the light of the gate. The shard pulsed faster, as if eager to obey. Saren coughed beside him, struggling to rise. "Kale, do not linger. The gate will awaken fully soon. If we delay, the Harbinger may return stronger." Kale nodded slowly. The silver figure smiled faintly. "I will guide you," she said, "but you must move your own hand. Destiny cannot be forced, only embraced." He stepped forward toward the gate, feeling the pull stronger than ever before. Every step felt like walking through memory itself, the echoes of ancient battles and long-forgotten voices brushing against his mind. The shard hummed in his palm, guiding him toward the heartstone embedded in the gate. As he reached it, the ground beneath him trembled. Shadows formed twisting shapes of warriors and beasts from the battles he had fought and the wars long past. They surged toward him, whispering temptations and doubts. Kale steadied himself, gripping the shard tightly. "I am Kale Ardent," he said aloud. "I am the last guardian, and I will not fail." The shadows hesitated as if recognizing the strength of his will. Light poured from the shard, burning away the darkness. Cale pressed it into the heartstone. Fire and energy erupted, scattering the visions into the air like sparks. The gate quivered as though alive, and Cale could feel its consciousness probing his own. Now, the silver figure said softly, embrace what lies beyond your fear. The shard pulsed once more, and then a bridge of golden light opened from the heartstone, reaching out into infinity. Cale stepped forward, feeling himself pulled into the radiance. The world of ruins and shadow faded, replaced by a vast expanse of light filled with shapes and colors beyond mortal comprehension. He saw worlds forming and dying within moments, stars exploding into new life galaxies spinning in delicate balance. The gate's voice spoke in his mind not as words but as feeling. Guardian, you are the bridge. Through you, the balance will endure or fall. Choose. Cale felt the shard burning in his chest. The silver figure's presence intertwined with his own. Every fear, every doubt, every memory of sacrifice flowed through him, and then clarity came. He would not let the darkness claim what was left of the world. He would stand even if alone. The shard sank into the heartstone. Light exploded outward, flowing across infinity, reshaping the gate. The visions of worlds ceased to swirl violently and aligned into harmony. Cale fell to his knees, overwhelmed but alive. The silver figure stepped closer, her hand resting upon his shoulder, though she remained within the light. You have chosen wisely, she said softly. The gate is sealed not by might, but by understanding. You embraced both shadow and light. That is why you endure. Cale closed his eyes, feeling exhaustion and relief wash over him. And the harbinger, he asked faintly, Thane. The light dimmed. He is gone, yet not destroyed. The choice to open or to close the gate rested upon your heart. His path was always separate. You may meet him again, but not yet. For now, the balance is held. He looked around at the expanse of light. Stars seemed to bend toward him, and whispers of the first guardians hummed through the air. He felt their strength, their sorrow, and their joy as if they had returned to walk beside him. Saren stumbled forward, supporting himself on his staff. You did it, Cale. The world, it survives. Cale rose slowly, brushing the snow from his cloak, though the valley below no longer existed, only infinite light. We did it, he said softly. I did not stand alone. The silver figure's hand lingered upon his shoulder. You never will, she said. As long as the gate calls, there will be those who guide and those who walk willingly. You are now both. Cale Ardent, last guardian of the ancient oath, felt for the first time a sense of peace. The burden of centuries pressed upon him no longer as a weight, but as a memory carried with honor. The gate stood silent and serene, its pulses now slow and measured. He turned to Saren, who smiled faintly. Come, Cale said. The world waits, and we must return to guide it before shadows rise again. Together they stepped from the threshold of light into the world below, where ruins of war remained, yet life stirred anew. The sun rose over the valley, bathing everything in gold. Cale felt the warmth, and for the first time in decades, he allowed himself to breathe without fear. In the heart of the universe, through light and shadow, through oath and sacrifice, the last guardian endured, and in that endurance the gate slept once more, awaiting the next soul brave enough to face it. Cale Ardent walked through the valley where ruins and ash lay scattered beneath the dawn. Every step felt lighter than before, though the memory of battle and shadow clung to his mind like a faint echo. The shard of dawn rested within his palm, glowing softly as though it had grown accustomed to him. It pulsed, not with urgency or warning now, but with a quiet presence, a heartbeat that matched his own. The silver-cloaked figure appeared beside him in the glimmer of morning light. She no longer spoke aloud, yet Cale felt her presence everywhere, a gentle warmth guiding his path. You endured, she whispered through the pulse of the shard. You embraced shadow and light. You are worthy of what comes next. Cale's steps faltered. I feel you everywhere, he murmured, but I cannot see you fully. Are you real or only the will of the gate? She did not answer with words, but with sensation. A stream of calm flowed through him, filling the hollows, left by years of solitude and battle. His heart no longer pounded with doubt. Instead, it beat in rhythm with the light of the shard. He felt a connection, not of flesh or blood, but of essence, a bond that tied his soul to hers and to the purpose of the gate itself. "Why me?" he asked aloud, though the voice was carried only to himself. "Why must I bear this alone?" "Because you chose it," she replied through the pulse. "Because you did not flee, because you stood when others fell. Courage alone is not enough, but it created the bridge between our paths. Through you, the gate remembers its guardians. Through you, the world may endure." Cale's eyes closed as he absorbed her presence. Memories of battles long past rose before him. Every comrade fallen, every choice made alone, every wound endured flowed together, forming a tapestry of devotion and pain. Yet in the midst of it all, he sensed her presence like a soft hand, tracing the lines of his spirit. "You were always here," he said softly, "even when I did not know it." "Always," the pulse replied. "I watched you walk through shadow. I guided you through fire. I whispered through the stone and the shard. You never faltered completely. And now you understand what must be done next." Cale opened his eyes. Light shimmered in every direction, yet he saw no form, only the gentle glow of the shard and the presence that intertwined with it. He knelt among the ruins, feeling the weight of eternity and the promise of destiny. "Tell me what I must do," he whispered. "Not for the world, not for the gate, but for us, for the bond that brought me here." The pulse of the shard shifted almost like laughter or a sigh of relief. "There is no us as you understand it. Only connection, only purpose, only choice. Yet that choice resonates. The bond is yours to honor through action. The gate may sleep, but it listens. It waits for the next heartbeat brave enough to face eternity. And you are that heartbeat." Cale held the shard to his chest. He could feel the warmth of her presence travel through every scar, every mark, every memory of blood and sacrifice. He did not feel alone. He felt whole. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying faint echoes of Saren's voice and the cries of battle long past. Cale stood slowly facing the horizon where the sun rose above shattered peaks. The bond pulsed softly in his palm, a quiet promise and a reminder. The gate's secrets were not only power or destruction, but understanding, connection, and endurance. "Then we endure together," Kyle said aloud. Though no lips spoke back, the pulse of the shard answered through warmth and rhythm, a silent affirmation that stretched beyond time. He began walking through the valley, feeling each step guided not by sight or fear, but by the presence intertwined with him. The ruins became less oppressive and more familiar, as though every stone, every mark had waited for this moment to be recognized. Shadows moved along the edges of vision, shapes of guardians long gone, yet they did not threaten. They bowed or paused in silent acknowledgement of his journey. The pulse of the shard carried the whispers of their approval, their shared memory becoming part of Kyle's essence. He paused at the edge of a cliff overlooking a river of molten light that flowed like veins through the heart of the valley. The gate stood far below its surface, still and silent for the first time since he had arrived. He felt its awareness not as threat, but as respect. The bond within him resonated with the gate as though his essence and hers had merged across the expanse of eternity. "Do you see now?" the pulse asked. "Not with eyes, but with understanding. Not with hands, but with essence. You are never alone, Kyle Ardent. You are the last guardian, yet you carry all who came before and all who will come after." Cale dropped to one knee, pressing the shard against his chest. His breath came steady and slow. He felt the weight of his oath not as burden, but as honor. The bond was no longer abstract or distant. It was part of him now, a rhythm in his heartbeat, a whisper in his soul, guiding every choice he would make. "I will not fail," he whispered. "Not the gate, not the world, and not you." The pulse of light shifted, warming him as though acknowledging the vow. "Then rise, Cale. The next path begins. You walk not alone. You walk with the past, with the future, and with me. Step forward and meet your destiny." Cale rose, feeling every scar, every memory, every echo of loss and victory infused with the presence guiding him. The valley stretched before him, alive with light and shadow flowing together in harmony. The gate waited silently below, but now he understood its secrets were not of conquest, but of connection. He walked toward it slowly, feeling the pulse in his chest synchronize with the pulse of the gate itself. The bond whispered with every heartbeat, carrying him forward, guiding him through every shadow past and present, into the promise of what could be. In that moment, Cale, ardent new fear could no longer hold him, and solitude could never touch him. The bond had become his strength, his resolve, and his purpose. And in the endless light of the valley beneath the forbidden gate, the last guardian took his first step into eternity. Cale, ardent, stood at the edge of the molten river beneath the gate, the shard of dawn pulsing bright in his hand. The valley stretched infinitely beyond his vision, every peak, every ruin, every shimmer of light filled with silent power. The bond that had guided him through shadow and fire now thrummed in his chest as if the heartbeat of the universe itself had synced to his own. The silver-cloaked figure appeared beside him in radiance that bent the air around her. Cale felt her presence in every fiber of his being, not as shadow, not as echo, but as essence intertwined with his own. Kyle, the pulse, said the time has come to see the truth that lies beyond the veil. He stepped forward toward the gate. Its runes shifted, forming patterns that seemed to tell stories older than memory, older than stars. Light and shadow danced across the surface, weaving a tapestry of creation and destruction. He could feel the pulse of countless lives resonating within its structure, the first guardians, the lost civilizations, the silent whispers of gods themselves. "Show me," Cale said aloud, voice steady yet filled with awe. "Show me everything." The shard flared bright in response, and the gate's surface rippled like water. Cale felt the world bend around him. Time stretched and collapsed simultaneously. He saw the birth of stars, their death and rebirth galaxies spiraling in perfect chaos. Worlds formed and crumbled under the gaze of the gate, yet none were destroyed, only transformed. The pulse within him whispered again. Creation and destruction are not opposites, Cale. They are partners. Balance must be understood, not conquered. That is why the gate exists. That is why you endure. Cale's chest ached with the enormity of understanding. All this is what the Guardians protected? The wars, the blood, the sacrifice? It was not to control, but to preserve. Yes, the pulse replied. The oath was never of domination, but of harmony. Every choice of life or death, every battle you endured led to this clarity. The Harbinger misunderstood the purpose. He sought to dominate, not understand. You are the bridge between what was and what must be. The river of molten light below swirled and coalesced, forming visions of Thane the Harbinger. His eyes burned with the same ambition and fury that had once driven Kyle. "You do not destroy him," the pulse said. "You understand. The path of wrath leads only to ruin. His destiny is separate yet connected. He will face the gate in time as all must. You guide not with steel, but with wisdom." Cale felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The anger he had carried against Thane, the loss, the solitude, the battles long past, they all folded into understanding. His bond with the pulse strengthened like threads weaving through the fabric of the gate itself. He turned his gaze back to the shard. It no longer glowed merely as a tool, but as an extension of his soul. Place it fully, the pulse urged, merge with the gate and see through it completely. Cale stepped onto the bridge of light extending from the heartstone, the bond flowing. Into him guiding every step, every heartbeat, every breath. The world around him expanded into infinity. The ruins, the mountains, the rivers, all fading into streams of pure energy. He felt the essence of the universe within his mind and body, not as burden, but as connection, as understanding, as clarity. Visions of the first guardians appeared surrounding him, their forms radiant and calm. Each placed a hand on his shoulder or arm, though he felt no touch, only presence. "You are the last guardian," one whispered, "yet in you we live again. You carry our strength, our knowledge, our memory. Through you the gate endures." Cale closed his eyes and allowed himself to merge with the light. He felt the pulse of every life, every star, every choice flowing through him. The shard sank into the heartstone, fully aligning with the gate. Waves of energy radiated outward, transforming the valley, the ruins, the rivers, the mountains, the clouds. He was no longer separate from the universe, but an integral note in its symphony. The pulse spoke one final time. "You have seen the truth, Kyle. The gate is not a weapon. It is a mirror. It is a guide. It is a heart of balance. You will return, but never the same. You carry the weight and the gift. Go now and walk among the worlds. Teach those who follow and stand where others fall. You are eternal through choice and understanding." Kale opened his eyes and felt the warmth of dawn on his face. The valley below looked familiar yet transformed. The ruins of battle were gone, light flowed gently through every stone and shadow. Saren knelt nearby, his staff planted in the earth, eyes wide with awe. You changed it," he whispered. Kyle nodded slowly. The gate revealed the truth. "The Harbinger will come again, but he will find guidance, not destruction. I understand now why the bond was given to me." The pulse of the silver-cloaked figure lingered around him, warm and steady. "Go, Kale Arden," it whispered. "Walk with what you have learned. Protect not with anger, but with wisdom. You are never alone." Kale Ardent looked toward the horizon where the sun rose over valleys and mountains shimmering in golden light. He held the shard close to his chest and felt the bond pulse softly, as if alive with quiet affirmation. The last guardian stepped forward into the world, not as solitary warrior, but as a bridge, between shadow and light, between past and future, between the finite and the eternal. Every step carried understanding, every breath carried memory and purpose, and in that step the universe acknowledged him not only as protector of the gate, but as keeper of its truth. Kale Ardent stood at the edge of the golden valley beneath the forbidden gate. Light flowed around him, gentle yet alive, carrying the essence of worlds and the whispers of guardians long gone. The shard of dawn rested in his palm, pulsing as if aware of the final choice before him. Every heartbeat echoed with the bond that had guided him through shadow and fire. Through loss and endurance, through solitude and sacrifice, the pulse of the silver-cloaked figure wrapped around him stronger than ever. "Kale," it whispered, "the final step awaits. What you choose now will shape the balance of the gate for all time. Will you walk among the worlds or merge completely with the light?" Kale's eyes traced the horizon, where infinite light stretched beyond mortal vision. He felt the presence of Thane the Harbinger somewhere in the distance, a shadow waiting for understanding. Every lesson, every bond, every moment of courage led to this instant. "I am ready," he whispered aloud. The gate trembled beneath him, the runes flaring gold and silver and black as if the universe itself held its breath. The river of molten light swirled below, reflecting stars that did not exist in any sky he had known. Kale stepped onto the bridge of radiant energy extending from the Heartstone and felt the pulse of the gate merge with the pulse of the shard. His essence intertwined with its essence as though he were both part of it and whole unto himself. Visions flooded him. Memories of guardians past and future, the rise and fall of civilizations, the silent wars waged in shadows of stars. He felt the Harbinger's presence not as foe, but as balance, a necessary shadow to contrast the light he now embodied. "You must forgive him," the pulse whispered, "as you have been forgiven by the gate. Only then is the cycle complete." Kale closed his eyes, breathing deep, drawing every thought, every scar, every memory into himself. He could feel the weight of eternity pressing upon him, yet it was not a burden, but a mantle of clarity. "I understand," he whispered, "balance is not conquest. It is understanding. It is endurance. It is connection." The gate flared with unimaginable brilliance. The pulse of the silver figure wrapped around him like a cloak of warmth and affirmation. "Then step forward, Kale Ardent," it said. "Embrace what you have become. You are the last guardian and the first of the new path. Walk and bind the light and shadow for all who follow." He stepped fully onto the bridge of light, feeling the essence of the gate pour into him. His body became weightless, his mind stretched across infinity, yet he remained Kale Ardent, grounded in purpose, in understanding, in bond. He reached out to the Harbinger and felt the shadow resonate not as threat, but as counterpart necessary and eternal. "Thane," he whispered, "your path is yours, yet we walk in harmony now." The river of molten light surged, forming a vast spiral connecting sky and earth, stars and stone. The gate's runes pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, creating patterns of creation and balance. The air sang with resonance of past, present, and future as Kale lifted the shard of dawn above his head. Its glow expanded, enveloping the valley, the mountains, and every world glimpsed within the gate's vision. Energy cascaded in waves, soft yet overwhelming, shaping every shadow, every light into harmony. The remnants of battle, the ruins, the pain of countless generations flowed into the gate, transforming into echoes of memory and hope. Kale felt every life he had touched, every choice he had made crystallize into understanding. The pulse whispered one last time, "You have completed the cycle, Kyle." The gate sleeps in balance, and your bond endures. You are never alone. Return now, or walk beyond as you will. Kale Ardent lowered the shard, his eyes shimmering with light. He felt the bond in every heartbeat and in every breath. "I walk with the world," he whispered, "with the past and the future. I am guardian of the gate and of all who follow. I endure." The gate's glow softened, and the valley beneath became solid and serene. The ruins shimmered gently with life returning. The sky above stretched endless and clear, filled with warmth and promise. Kyle stepped down from the bridge of light, feeling every step rooted in balance and purpose. Saren knelt nearby, eyes wide with wonder. You did it, Kale," Saren said softly. "The gate. The world." Kale smiled faintly, feeling the pulse of the bond like a quiet drum beneath his chest. "It is not finished," he said, "but now it endures." The gate rests in balance. Shadow and light coexist. The past guides the future. The silver-cloaked presence lingered one last time, warm and reassuring. "Go, Kale Ardent," it whispered. "Your journey continues among the worlds, but the gate will always remember you." The last guardian endures through all time. Kale Ardent looked toward the horizon, where mountains gleamed, rivers sparkled, and forests swayed in gentle wind. He felt the heartbeat of the universe within himself and around him. Every step carried memory, every breath carried bond, every glance carried understanding. The Harbinger's shadow lingered faintly in the distance, yet no fear arose, only acceptance. Balance required both the light he held and the shadow that waited. He did not need to destroy or conquer, only endure and guide. Kale Ardent walked from the heart of the valley into the world beyond, forever changed yet grounded in purpose. The shard of dawn pulsed softly in his palm, and the pulse of the silver-cloaked figure lingered within him as bond and guide. The forbidden gate stood silent and serene behind him, its secrets secured, its balance eternal, and the last guardian endured. The world breathed anew. The bond thrummed with quiet strength. Eternity began.